Dr. Kansagra, can you discuss some of the CAR T-cell therapies in development for multiple myeloma, including their targets, clinical trial data that we've seen, and your expectations for any future FDA approvals?
For sure. Thank you for the question. I think certainly in multiple myeloma, a few of the CAR T-cell therapy targets, which has been in the most developments, have been the BCMA targeted CAR T-cell therapies. Now, those have been most exciting because they have made it to the phase 1 to phase 2 trials. Especially the registrational studies from Celgene or Bluebird. Now BMS, the BB2121 compound, or the Janssen Janssen compound 4538, being farthest out in the clinical development for CAR T-cell therapy. There are certainly few other CAR T-cell therapies for multiple myeloma which have grown, and they're probably in the earlier lines of therapy right now in the phase 1s. I shouldn't say lines of therapy, but earlier development of therapy. Example being the CD38 CAR T-cell therapy, the SLAM-F CAR T-cell therapy, and GPR5CD CAR T-cell therapy. Those are the 3 different targets which are being evaluated as T-cell targets.
Okay. And how do you see the approval of these CAR T-cell therapies impacting the treatment landscape for multiple myeloma?
I think it's going to be a huge improvement in our momentum of our treatment options. I mean, we have already seen cell therapy in myeloma have impressive results in terms of the response rates. So I think the first important step was you have these patients who have got 6 or 7 different lines of treatment, and now they are getting a novel product or a novel mechanism of action and also a novel target, and seeing an impressive response rate. So that was amazing. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is, as we have got further into the clinical development of CAR T-cell therapy, we have seen the safety of these products, because that is extremely important that our products are safer. And then the third thing which we have seen is some of, it's still long-term follow-ups are not there, but what we have started seeing is there are responses which could last up to a year and a half for the population, where we would have usually seen maybe barely in response in a matter of months. So I think those are exciting times for our patients with multiple myeloma where they have failed a lot of therapies. I think the more exciting times are going to come when we will start seeing these CAR T-cell therapies potentially even in earlier lines of treatment options, where they could use maybe as a second line treatment or as a first line treatment after stem cell transplant or in lieu of stem cell transplant. Maybe we can have deeper and longer remission rates.
And with some of these agents potentially coming to market, do you foresee any challenges either associated with adverse events or the ability to make these treatments widely available to patients?
Yeah, I mean, I think access to care is certainly near and dear to me, and thinking about those challenges is extremely, extremely important. And I think we're going to probably face challenges in a lot of different ways. The first thing is obviously, how can we get our patients to these centers who are giving CAR T-cell therapy, right? So how are we going to bring them? We know from our stem cell transplant or autologous stem cell transplant over the last 3 to 4 decades that still not every eligible transplant patient is referred to a transplant center for whatever reasons. There are multiple reasons. There are socioeconomic reasons, there are distance reasons, but there are a lot of them are fixable reasons. There are some which are unfixable, but there are some fixable. So I think the first and the foremost important thing is going to be get our patients to a place who is delivering T-cell therapy, CAR T-cell therapy. So that's the challenge number 1. The challenge number 2 is once they are in there, making sure that they are able to get that thing. So it means they are not coming too late in their game. So, trying to make sure they are referred in earlier points so that process is in place, that insurance approval has got started. So if we need to work on the socio-demographic issues, how are they going to stay in a particular area? What is the social help? What are the family help they're going to need? So So I think if they are referred earlier on, so that's another, I kind of call it a bottleneck. That's another bottleneck we need to think of, that's where we need to act on it. The third thing is obviously the cost. Now, we don't know what is going to be the cost of the myeloma CAR T cell therapy, or what is the price of those things. We can certainly guesstimate that it's not going to be as cheap given the few CAR Ts, or 3 CAR Ts, which are now FDA approved. Uh, so I think it's going to be expensive. So we will have to think of the cost of care model of how are we going to work with this. And then, I think the last but not the least, the challenge is the CAR T itself, right? And I mean, these are the clinic. These are, I would define, more in the logistical challenge bucket, and then there is a challenges in the CAR T landscape, or the product itself. We still know that these are second generation CAR T cell therapies. They don't work for everybody. They have a high response rates, but either they don't last that long. We hope to see longer remissions. An example I gave in comparison to large cell lymphoma, we had 50% of the people who plateaued out at now coming up to about 3 years, where in myeloma, we haven't obviously made it to 3 years since the CAR T cell therapy have started, but we do worry that there is a tail end of the curve, that people are already relapsing to it. And obviously that goes to the product itself, or the construct itself, that needs to be developed in multiple different ways. So I think those are, I think of them as two major challenges ahead of us.